So it is applicable for the untrusted environment. The major drawback with blockchain is the record keeping and searching is the complex task. The reason is, the blocks are keep on growing, and yet every block contains some of the data. If you want to find some data which is placed in some X numbered block, you have to traverse from the latest block to the particular X number block, and you have to search the data. So which will be a complex task. But these days, what is happening even after this Ethereum, they talk about the world state or the snapshot. So what they do is they keep the latest data in the normal database, which Coda and all says that we can keep in a normal database, including Hyperledger says. But in case of Ethereum, every block contains the world state, which maintains the latest data. So if we say from zero, that is the Genesis block, it is started, and we have reached, maybe at present we are in the 1 crore block. So in that block itself, we can find out all users' balance. So instead of traversing till the Genesis block and find out what is the balance of a particular user. So that advantage they have provided. So with that, we can say the searching and record keeping is little simpler. However, if you want to find out some of the transactions, then only the approved transaction, the only option you have is to traverse the complete chain. But there also, in case of Ethereum, I don't know whether it is covered or not, there they use the Bloom filter, which simplifies the searching. So please let me know if I am moving fast, or if you have any doubt, please interrupt me. No need to wait till I complete. Okay, so according to your requirement, I can change my presentation style. So this is about the blockchain. So in case of blockchain, most of the people talk about mining. So where the mining is solving the puzzle. So Madam Dr. Dhanlakshmi.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Madam, is the mining discussed?
Only some part of introduction, sir.
Okay, okay, okay. So what they do in mining is as in general, people knows the miner is the one who creates the block or generates the block, or we can say mines the block. The important thing why that word mining is used, they have to solve a puzzle. That means they have to dig and find out the solution for a puzzle. So the puzzle is very simple, but solving the puzzle is very tough. So it is like NP problem. You can verify, that is validate the solution in a polynomial time, but finding the solution is not possible in polynomial time with determinism. So you will be having the non-determinism, and you cannot solve it in the polynomial time. Only possibility is the exponential time. So what is the problem that is puzzle solving is, I have a hash function, whatever hash function we can consider. I have a hash function. I give some input to the hash function that produces the output. The output is of some size. Let's say from 0 to certain extent. Okay, in case of 256, SHA-256, the total number of bits possible is 256 bits. So the total value, that is the space, can contain maximum number of values, that is the individual values, 2 power 256 minus 1. That means we can get the output of the particular function from 0 to 2 power 256 minus 1. It can be any value that function will produce. And the function is random function, but it is deterministic. So why I am using the word deterministic is, if I give an input and the function produces an output. So if I give the same output input again, the output will be same. So since it is deterministic. But why I use randomness here is, so once you give the input, even though output is fixed, but you don't know what will be the output. So the output will be completely random, and even you cannot predict the pattern, that this kind of pattern is possible in that output. So this is the hash function. So you give an input and it produces an output. So what I will say is, your output should be less than some threshold. Okay, that threshold will be adjusted in case of Bitcoin every 2016 blocks, that is 2 weeks once. In case of Ethereum, it gets changed for every block. So that threshold, if I give an input and that produces output, if it is not less than the threshold, I have to change my input. So till I get that particular output which is less than the threshold, I have to keep on changing my input. So here if I change my input, here what is the input means the input is the block header. So I cannot keep on changing my block header. Some of the portions are fixed, that is static, I cannot change that. But you have the provision that there is one attribute in the header which is called as nonce, that is number once use. So you have one set of input which is fixed and another part which can be dynamic. You concatenate both and give to the function and it produces an output which should be less than the threshold. If it is not, then you modify the nonce. Again the same static input will be used and give it to the hash function, it produces the output. So it will be keep on going until you solve the problem. Okay, so don't think that it is very simple. I can show you my experiment. I will come back to that slide later. So you can see this is my application experiment which I done on my normal machine which has the 3.2 GHz processor with 8 GB RAM which has 4 cores. So I have written the Go language code with 4 threads and I give some random input. Always I give, first I give input as A, then B, C, D, then A, B, AC, like that I was giving, the input keep on I was giving. So when I fix the threshold, as I said that the threshold will be fixed, but it should be within the limit of the complete space. The complete space is 0 to 2 power 256 minus 1. So when I ran this and I fixed this as the threshold, randomly I have fixed, okay, here there is no reason why I put the 250 here, just I thought let me go for 250, so I have fixed it. And then I measured how much time it takes to solve this puzzle, okay, by taking various inputs, whether it produces the output within the threshold or not. So it took 0.295 seconds with 1033 attempts. So these many attempts were required to solve that puzzle. So when I fixed the threshold as 2 power 240, it took 0.289 seconds. Don't think that here it is 0.295, here it is 0.289. So it's because there are 4 parallel threads running, okay, and one might have got at the earliest. And you know there is a possibility, we can say the complexity is order of n, not order of n, order of 2 per n, but there is a possibility in order of 1 also you will get if you are very lucky, okay, but that is not at all possible. So after these many attempts, I found the input which produces, which comes less than this threshold limit. So here it is, I have written as less than, actually it should be less than or equal to. So when I put the threshold as 2 power 230, these many attempts were required. And you see it took 15 seconds to solve them. When I put 2 power 220 as the threshold, approximately these many number of attempts, that is 2 power 32 number of attempts, it could find the input which can produce the output less than this threshold with the time it took is 3468 seconds. When I went for 2 power 210 as the threshold, up to this much time, even I can say that it was running for more than 1 day. I could not find the answer because the attempts I can get only once I solve the problem, that the function solves the problem, but I could not get the result even after 1 day. See, you know that in case of any questions, please. So in case of Bitcoin, the block has to be mined in 10 minutes of time. That is, the average is approximately, we can say 10 minutes, but it varies. Accordingly, the threshold will be set up in the next slot. In case of Ethereum, it's 15 seconds in an average. But here you see, when this threshold is put, and the machine what I am using is normal desktop machine. It takes more than 1 day time. So will be possible that I can take part in the mining? So in that case, I can never take part in the mining. And second thing, we use different applications. Okay, and that applications contains not always the high-end machines. Okay, you know that if you want to achieve the puzzle solving in 10 minutes of time, how much infrastructure you need. Okay, in all applications I cannot spend that much infrastructure. So there why they are spending that much, are ready to invest for that infrastructure, is they are going to get the money. So I discussed with one guy, he belongs to UP, but he settled in Singapore, and that guy was doing the mining. And initially he invested around 30 lakhs, not 30 lakhs, it's around 30 crores he has invested at the initial stage for the complete setup. After that, now for every month he is spending 30 lakhs for maintenance of the infrastructure, which includes the electricity also. So I asked him, so you are spending this much money, are you getting profit out of it? He said, at least I get 2 times of what I spent. Okay, because Bitcoin gives the reward for every mining of block in case it is successful, and also the transaction fee. Okay, and you know the average INR to BTC is, that is the Bitcoin is now around 7.7 lakh something. So if he mines one block, right now I think it has come down, the reward has come down. Accordingly, they will increase the transaction fee. That is the separate thing, no need to discuss here. They get a lot of money, so they invest. When we go for some other applications, let's say I want to use blockchain for e-healthcare, okay, where I want to maintain the or develop the healthcare management system, that is health record, e-health record management system. So in that case, can I spend that much infrastructure? Definitely, I will say it is not possible. Not only me, even the hospitals will not be ready. So whatever they have, we have to go according to that. But we cannot say that you can have only laptop and go with that. Okay, they have to spend some of the infrastructure, but not too much. Okay, so in that case, the blockchain implementations available right now, not right now, a little earlier, which was Bitcoin based implementation. Bitcoin does not support the decentralized application. Ethereum, with that and all, we cannot develop the application where you cannot, where you don't have the facility to spend the infrastructure. And second thing is, you have to invest, and you, once you invest, definitely you will look for the money. Okay, so you know that in this world, if you want to ask somebody to do the work, you have to give them something back. Okay, this is at least 99 percentage, it's true. In the 99 percentage of cases, it is true. So if you are asking them to invest, and if you don't give anything to them, then how they will take part in mining? So these are the problems come into the mind of the developers, that is Hyperledger developers. Then they introduce the concept of Hyperledger. So they started the project in 2015, and the first version was introduced in January 2018. That is Sawtooth they have introduced. That was not for the real-time application use, but in the same year around October, they brought this Hyperledger Fabric, that is the framework to have the blockchain based decentralized application. So in this way, this is the, I can say, the introduction for the uh, Hyperledger Fabric. Why do we need Hyperledger Fabric? So if anybody have doubt, please let me know.
So Hyperledger Fabric can be used for any kind of network, sir?
I will come to that. Okay, you can use for any application, but before that, we should justify whether Hyperledger Fabric or the blockchain is required or not. The reason is, even though I say that this Ethereum and all more costly, and we go for Hyperledger, which is not costly, but even Hyperledger also takes some additional overhead in case of storage, okay, and also in case of confirmation, that is the delay in the consensus. So we must justify that yes, this application needs blockchain and only blockchain can solve the problem. First you should get convinced, after that you have to apply the blockchain. At the end you have to justify the overhead. Definitely there will be a overhead with respect to storage and then the communication cost. Okay, you have to justify that. So then only people will accept in case of research, but in case of any application where the government want to use or some industry want to use, that it has to only convince them. For example, you know, the government of Andhra Pradesh, uh, I read long back, they have used Hyperledger Fabric for the land record management. So we know that in land registration there are a lot of problem happens. So to overcome that issue they have used the Hyperledger Fabric. Okay, so for government is going to use and they use Hyperledger Fabric, not much we can say the justification is required, but we have to say that some of the problems which cannot be solved by any other technology will be solved by so-called blockchain technology. So any other queries?
So target here, the value of the target is minimum. How we are fixing the target value, sir?
See, actually in Bitcoin, what they do is they assumed that is for every 2 weeks, 2016 block has to be mined. Okay, accordingly they have fixed initially the target as 2 power 224, I think. Okay, so after that 2 weeks they will see, that is after the 2016 block, it will be analyzed within the 2 weeks time how many blocks are generated. Okay, how many blocks are mined. If the number of blocks mined is more, then they will decrease the target. Decrease means they will increase the difficulty. Okay, because it has to take more time in mining. If they find very less number of blocks are mined in that 2 weeks, their expectation is 2016. Let's say only 1016 block is mined, then they will relax. Okay, the target will be increased. Okay, and there is an equation for it, so they do based on that equation. Okay, here I have not followed anything. You can see that it is of 10 decrease in each numbers. Okay, but in case of Ethereum, for every block they adjust the target, that is the difficulty they adjust. Any other queries?
Sir, in case of private networks, number of blocks may be less, no, sir?
See, if the blocks are less, then the confirmation time for a transaction will take time. So here we cannot say that blocks are less. I understand your question. You mean to say if the blocks growth is slow, then the requirement of storage will be less. Okay,
yes, sir.
So definitely in private blockchain, the what to say, we cannot say as the private blockchain. I'm sorry, I will come to that private later. It is the permissioned blockchain. In permissioned blockchain, the transactions are only among the set of users who are pre-decided.
Yes,
so if the number of transactions are less, definitely the growth of the chain will also be less. Okay,
yes,
and in permission network, they always assume that there is no attacker inside. Okay,
yes, sir.
but we have to assume that accordingly we have to apply the consensus protocol that I will discuss in the future slides. See, private network and permission network are different. Permission network where you will allow only, there will be a centralized person, he will allow who can participate in the particular network. In case of private network, even you can make the permissionless blockchain implementation as the private. But only thing is, you cannot give the Genesis block to the public. You will give Genesis block only to the known person or the person whom you want to connect. So whatever I do the experiment with Ethereum that is private. Okay, even though it is permissionless, but I do as the private. But Ethereum supports permissioned blockchain also with this authentication round, proof of authority.
Fine, sir.
So any other questions? Okay, so I assume that things are clear to everyone, but there is a vice versa also. So let me go back to this slide. This is the last slide I am going to discuss other than Hyperledger Fabric. So you can see here the blocks containing two parts. This we call as the header and this we call as the data part. Okay, so the chain will be growing like this. So every time when there will be a new block created, it will be created like this. There are nodes called as the light node, which can store only or who can store only the header part, and there are nodes which is full node that stores the complete chain, that is including the data part. Also it takes part in the mining. Light nodes never take part in mining because it does not have the sufficient infrastructure. So in the similar way, we can say that Hyperledger also has the blockchain. So where these transactions, so this is a tree. In case of Bitcoin, it is normal Merkle tree, but in case of Ethereum, it is the Patricia tree. That is, they call it as Merkle Patricia tree. So here, this maintains the world state, what I was talking in the beginning. Also, they maintain the transactions. So similarly, in case of Hyperledger, the transactions are maintained here. Okay, so this is just the, what to say, the high abstract level representation of the blockchain. And you can see here there is an advantage. Maybe whoever will discuss Ethereum, they can discuss. So now, before I get into Hyperledger, that classification I want to show. So you can see here there are different types of blockchain. One is the permissionless blockchain, then public permissioned blockchain, private permissioned blockchain, and then here we say don't go for the blockchain. So what is this permissionless blockchain is? It's the public blockchain. Everybody is invited. Okay, there is no restriction. In case of permission, there is a restriction. Okay, there will be a service provider. So that is the membership service provider. He decides who has to join in the network. And inside that permission, we can categorize into two parts. One is public and the private. So in case of public, what we do is there are two operations. Let's assume read and write operations. Okay, read operation is just seeing what is there in the blockchain. In case of write operation, somebody can modify in the sense they can put the transaction in the blockchain. So if we allow the user to see the data, any user that we allow public to see the data of the blockchain, then that becomes the public blockchain, public permissioned blockchain. In case we say that no outsiders are allowed to read as well as write on the blockchain, then that blockchain will be considered as the private permissioned blockchain. So now let's say, because when you take an application, you have to decide what type of blockchain you need. Okay, so first let's say that you have an application and you have to find out whether the state is required or not. That is, you know, that replication state, that is the state machine, that in the distributed machine you want to maintain the state that everyone will be in the same state at one point of time. So that one point of time is possible when you are going for the synchronized network. In case of asynchronous, there will be definitely delay in the similarity in the state at any point of time. So if you want decentralization, yes, you go for it. If you don't want decentralization, then don't think about the blockchain. And once you go for decentralization, you want that multiple writers should be there, because you know that there will be only sometimes one writer and there will be n number of readers. So in that case, don't go for blockchain. Okay, if there are multiple writers, then go for the next level. Can you use an always online trusted third party? So the first thing is we should not consider trusted third party. In case you have online trusted third party, then again no need to use blockchain. Okay, you should go, if it is not, then go for the next one. Are all writers known, that whoever is going to participate in the network is known, then you think of permission. Otherwise, go for permissionless blockchain, as I said in the beginning. So if all writers are known, again you assume that all writers are trusted. If the network is trusted, then no need to use blockchain, so don't go for that. So if the writers are not trusted, then go is, first you check, is public verifiability required, that is the read operation required for the public or not. If required, go for public permission blockchain, otherwise go for the private permission blockchain. So in this way, see, this is one of the flow diagram I have shown. There are so many other flow diagrams available. You can find out there and decide whether your application needs the blockchain or not. Okay, so according to the requirement, you have to use the blockchain. So we have permissionless blockchain, and which will support for decentralized application mostly is the Ethereum. And when we come into the permissioned blockchain, even though there are many, the very well known is Hyperledger Fabric. Okay, in many industry uses as well as some of the government organization uses this. So I hope the things are clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Hyperledger is mainly, you please see this, for developing blockchain applications for the enterprise. So where they cannot spend so much on mining. Okay, and rather we can say Hyperledger Fabric does not have the concept of mining. Okay, so it contains some of the characteristics which is specific to Hyperledger Fabric. That is the, so the important thing is Hyperledger is also an implementation of blockchain technology. Okay, but there is no mining involved in the Hyperledger Fabric. So I will explain you later how that approval happens for a block to take part in the chain. So it has the characteristics. One is permission, only the authorized users can join, and it supports privacy. So we cannot say it completely ensures privacy, but it ensures privacy. The reason is here the in case of permissionless, anybody can see anyone's data. But in case of this Hyperledger Fabric, what happens is if you have a network, that network will be categorized into multiple layers or the multiple levels. So there is, each level or layer has given some task. So they have to only do the task, they cannot do any other task. So in that case, what happens, that particular layer or the level can see what the data is, another level cannot see. In that way, they claim that the privacy is ensured. But again, I repeat, it's not completely private. It completely ensures the privacy. And it supports the smart contract. Here, everything should happen through smart contract only. Because if you see in Ethereum, the complete Go Ethereum is running without the smart contract. If anybody want to add any decentralized application, they have to bring the smart contract. But in case of permission, Hyperledger Fabric, you always need to put the smart contract. And the consensus algorithm, so you know that in case of distributed system, consensus is very important. In Hyperledger Fabric, there are some other permissioned blockchain already available. There they don't give any pluggable consensus. They fixed the consensus. For example, even if you take the permissionless Ethereum, there the proof of work is fixed. You cannot modify it. If you have to modify, you have to modify the code, internal code. But Hyperledger provides the pluggable method where you can insert whatever consensus you need. But you have to make sure that consensus is supported or applicable in the Hyperledger Fabric environment. And here there is no mining. If there is no mining, you know that there is no need of the reward. Okay, but there are cases where you have to give reward, then only people will participate actively. Otherwise, they will not participate. and here there is no concept of fork. So that means once you put the transaction on a blockchain, then it is deterministic. Okay, definitely that will be part of the network or the part of the chain. Okay, so no fork is possible. In case of other permissionless, definitely fork is there, but the advantage with Hyperledger Fabric is it is deterministic, or we can say accurate. The consensus is accurate and there is no fork possible. So when I was talking about this consensus, the consensus comes because of the distributed system. So you know that if you take any distributed system, there is always a problem with the consensus. The consensus is coming to an agreement. Okay, we need an agreement for some of the things what we have to decide. Okay, when we are going for agreement, there is always possibility that one or other person will create an issue. Maybe he is malicious and he does something, or we can say there is a fault on the machine. Sometimes what happens, the machine will crash. So okay, let's assume now the presentation is going on, and if my machine crashes or the power goes off, then what will happen? So such kind of problems are there. So here they categorize the fault. So these we can
Sir,
call
excuse me, sir.
yes.
Sir, since Hyperledger Fabric supports private, permissioned networks, what is the need of privacy, sir? There.
See, even if you are having, let's assume you are working in an institute, okay?
Yes,
So, and take that some of the things are only to the institute, but further you need that your department things also. See, you don't want to disclose some of the things from your department to outside.
But this is between or among the organization. Suppose some diamond concerned ore is being supplied, whether as per the specifications it is being supplied or not, we want to see through the smart contracts if it is implemented through Hyperledger. In that
Okay.
case, they actually the vendor supplier has to stick on to the agreed specifications only. But all organizations or business people are interested to know what actually the item being supplied. All those information need to be transparent. Then why privacy is required there?
See, Hyperledger supports you can run multiple smart contracts. Okay, in one
Yes.
blockchain, in one Hyperledger framework, you can run multiple smart contracts. Okay, one thing is you don't want one smart contract to see another smart contract. And the second thing, you are saying that there are users who has to or who must see or verify the data. Okay,
Yes, sir.
but there are users who is taking part in the network and they support or contribute to the network, but they are not having rights to see the data. Okay, so don't assume that you will have the users who are actually participant of that particular application. There may be some other users that I will discuss in the future slide who has some other role. Okay, such as they have to endorse the application, they have to order the service, and they have to update on the database that is in the blockchain. So those people, if you say that orderer, let's assume there are some people are considered as the orderer, so they don't have any role in seeing what is there inside. Okay, so that will be hidden from those people. So in that way it ensures privacy. That's why I said that it does not completely ensures the privacy. And transparency is definitely required. Transparency is in, we can discuss in two ways. The first transparency is you have to make sure whatever puts on the data blockchain that remains. Okay, nobody modifies that. And another one, you want everyone to see that. Okay, even if you are allowing everyone to see, then you have to go for the public permission blockchain. Okay, sometimes you will restrict that only these people can see. Okay, and there are users who contributes and who is not having authority or who should not see, or we can say who is not interested to see. See what happens if somebody is not having any role in seeing the data and you are giving the permission to them, then definitely they will misuse it. Okay, even though they are genuine, we ourselves making them to perform some of the attack.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So we can categorize the fault into two. The first one is the crash fault, and the second one is the non-crash fault. So what is this crash fault means? The machine itself get faulty due to various reasons. But in case of non-crash, that is the Byzantine fault, the machine start to behave in, what to say, in malicious manner. Instead of malicious manner, we can say that in arbitrary manner. In some case, it gives some output or sends some output. In another case, it sends some unwanted output kind of things. So once the system started behaving maliciously, then it will give some arbitrary outputs. That comes under the non-crash fault. But in the crash fault, we assume that there are no attackers, and there are protocols for to overcome the crash fault in the distributed system and get the consensus. Those are Raft, Kafka, and some others are there. By default, Hyperledger uses the Kafka, and it has the provision to use the Raft. Also, it has the provision to, the code is already there. That is a Byzantine fault tolerance code is already there. If we have to import on the Hyperledger Fabric, we can import, but by default, Kafka consensus is used in the Hyperledger Fabric. So here in Hyperledger Fabric, they consider crash fault, they don't consider non-crash fault. The reason is the network is permission. Okay, they know that there are no attackers. Okay, that's why they have used Kafka. But you know, there are situations where you use permission network, permissioned blockchain, but there may be attackers inside, whom we call it as the insider attack or inside attacker. So in that case, this Raft and Kafka cannot solve the problem of getting the consensus. So we need to go for some other consensus algorithm, which is non-crash fault. That is the Byzantine fault tolerance, which is the practical Byzantine fault tolerance can be used. And also, you know, the proof of works are there, and proof of stake and proof of burn, proof of this elapsed time. And there are so many consensus protocol available for the non-crash fault, that is the Byzantine faults. So by default, Hyperledger uses the Kafka. So how the consensus will be reached? This is an example for Byzantine consensus. In case of Kafka, it is very simple. It uses the Hyperledger uses the Zookeeper as one of the storage. What it does is it decides the leader and give. Okay, the remaining nodes will be followers. They will simply follow the leader. In case the leader is behaving maliciously, or it is, and here I should not use the word malicious because it only talks about the crash fault. So if any leader, or if the leader is crashed, then the Zookeeper will decide the next leader from the group and announce to the Hyperledger layer, that is the upper layer, that is the validation layer, and that will be used as the leader, and all followers will be supporting the leader to get the consensus. And in case of Byzantine, the things are different. You can see here also the leader has to be elected, and here we have to consider the maliciousness. If any leader, let's say if a leader is started behaving maliciously and the replicas noted that and identified that, then the replicas will go for deciding the next leader by removing this leader from the Byzantine fault tolerance network. So what happens is, how the consensus works, the client sends the request to the leader because the leader only visible to the public, and then the leader sends the same request to all the replicas. Then what happens, all replicas will send the response to all other replicas including the leader. Okay, this is the response, this is the response. Once the response is received by all the nodes, that is among each other, they are receiving the responses. Once the responses are received, they have to commit. That means they have to update on their database. See, here the request comes, they do the process, but they will not update their database. So once the process is done, they will send the response. till the time it is like temporary. So the temporary data will be sent among all the participants, and once they all see yes it is okay, then they will send message to all others that now everything is perfect, now you can commit. Now commit means update on the database. Once the update is done, the response will go to the client. That you see the client gets the response from each and every replica. But these days there are so many improvements on the Byzantine consensus, because you see here there are so many communication happens. Because of this communication, the transaction will get delayed. Okay, the confirmation of transaction will get delayed. So they have introduced, or they have, rather we can say they have improved this Byzantine protocol. Even we have also done one work where we can bring out the number of communications to less than, it's around n kind of thing. Okay, I could not remember the exact complexity of it. So with that itself we can ensure. Okay, this is the general Byzantine, practical Byzantine fault tolerance. That's why you can see there are so many communications. So now how the consensus is going to happen is, once the client sends the request, it is going to everyone, and that everyone is sharing among others. So in this case, what happened in this particular layer, everybody knows what all others are having. So if the common one, that is the majority one, is there, so the consensus means coming to an agreement where the most of the people agrees. Okay, here they will say, for example, if all of them say yes, 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 so the majority is yes, so majority yes will be updated in all the places. In case 3 says as yes and 1 says as no, so in that case also the yes has the majority and that will be updated. So in this case, in this way, the consensus is achieved on the Byzantine consensus. But in case of Kafka and Raft, the things are different. The leader has to say, yes, this is the one you have to update, then all will update. The reason is there they don't consider the attacker. That is, the maliciousness is not considered in case of Kafka. That is the crash fault. So I hope this one is clear. So there is one advantage with Hyperledger Fabric is, so you can see this flow diagram. This flow diagram is for the implementation of many blockchain implementations, including the Bitcoin and Ethereum. So this order, they call it as order execute. Okay, what they do at first is they collect all the transactions, they order it, after that they execute, then it will get updated on the database. So that is what happens in this flow. First you order the transactions, then go for the execution, then update on the database. So this faces various problems. The problems are sequential execution, non-deterministic, and the confidentiality. So what is the sequential execution? So you know that in Ethereum or Bitcoin, different miners, for example, let's say I am a miner and I have a transaction pool. I received n number of transaction and it is there on my transaction pool. I randomly pick some of the transaction. Here the randomness will be ensured through the transaction fee and other condition given by the Bitcoin implementation. So based on that, I take the transaction, I order it, okay, what transaction to be executed, and I execute it on my machine itself. I will execute. Okay, after that I broadcast to my neighbors. Okay, so once it goes to my neighbors, again they will also execute it once again. Okay, so when they are executing, they will follow the same sequence. Okay, and the same sequence should be followed. There may be case they are having some of the transactions which may not present in the transaction pool because of the delay. Okay, the same sequence it should be followed. So all of them have to follow the same sequence. If the sequence should be followed according to the miner, then what will happen is there will be a delay in executing the transaction. Because if you say all have to follow the sequence, then definitely it takes time. If you say don't follow the sequence, go according to yours, then they will do little faster. Next is the deterministic execution. It never gives the determinism, because if I take some transaction and mine it and send it to others, and there is a possibility that particular transaction may not be part of the main chain. So in that case, what happens? There is no determinism. So we will ensure the non-determinism. And then the confidentiality, we ask all the users to execute. So in that case, definitely the confidentiality will go. But in case of Hyperledger, they don't allow all of them to execute. There are set of pairs, only they can execute, others cannot execute. So this is what followed in most of the blockchain implementations. This is what followed in the Hyperledger fabrics. So here you see what they do. They first do the execution. After that, they go for the order. So when they are ordering, here the consensus will be used. That is the atomic broadcast. So what the atomic broadcast is, we have to make sure that all the participants in the network finally get all the records as well as in the same order. So that will be ensured through the Kafka. After that, you can see the validation is happening. So you can put the question here you are executing and here you are validating. Here what the validation means, here somebody has executed. Okay, so that executed person knows whether the whatever the execution output is the right one or not. So he just add that. So here please note down, the execution means they will simulate the execution. They will not apply the real-time execution. They will simulate. And once they simulate and give that output, and they will verify, they will not verify the output, they will verify those who executed is the right person or not. Okay, because they will provide the certificates and signature. Using that, that will be validated. After that, it will be updated on the database. So here you can see validate endorsements and read write sets. So endorsement means whatever the user is simulating the transaction, that is executing the transaction, their endorsements will be validated. That means their signature will be validated. And then read write sets will also be validated. That means when these particular set of nodes perform the read write operation, that is execution, they have to read something and they have to write something. Okay, that you can find out in various.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, please. Little
Sir,
louder.
within the smart contract only, we are supposed to write the endorsement conditions.
No, that should be in the network.
Okay.
Okay. Smart contract is only for your application. Okay. When you are setting up the Hyperledger network, there these all has to be written.
So what are the conditions for endorsing, sir? How peers will endorse?
There will be the service provider. He will say that this set of users can do the endorsement. Okay. And as an administrator, if you are setting up the Hyperledger Fabric network, you can make sure that who will be the endorser and who will be the orderer. Okay, accordingly you can give. So you will be acting as the MSP. And most of the time, what happens, even till now, I have not written single smart contract code, either in Hyperledger, neither in Hyperledger nor in Ethereum. So I always work with the core Go Ethereum code. I directly modify the blockchain implementation. I don't get into smart contract because there are some cases the smart contract will make a delay. And most of the time my applications are the public network. So there it can be decided. Okay.
Sir,
So,
the one who ordered for certain items only has to endorse, no, sir?
no. See, those who order, he will be the client.
Okay.
Okay. Then there will be set of nodes who will be the endorsers. They will see your order is perfect, proper or not, and you have the balance or not. Okay. Once they endorse, that will be given back to the client. Then client will take it forward. Okay. Mostly I will explain that in the next slide.
Fine, sir.
So the read write set are what things read from the blockchain and what should be written on the blockchain will be present in the read write set. And if during the validation, if it finds there is any conflict, then the transaction will be rejected, but that will be informed to the client. Okay. Otherwise, there are committers who will update the database. That is the blockchain. So the components of the network or the ordering service, the one who is going to do the consensus, and the membership service provider, he will be acting as the authority for the network because he gives the key, that is the certificate to the participant, whether he has to be the endorser or committer or orderer. And it supports the peer-to-peer peer gossiping service. So this is the place where we get the consensus. And it has the smart contract, and most of the people say that when it comes into Hyperledger, they don't say as the smart contract, they call it as chain code. Okay, but I always say that it is the smart contract. It's not. The chain code is, see, for example, in case of Ethereum, we use Solidity. So similarly, here we say as their Solidity is a language, but chain code is not a language. We use that to refer Hyperledger, but that is also a smart contract. And it has the ledger, that is the blockchain ledger it has, and it has one advantage which I already said, the world state, that is a snapshot. The latest data will be available. For example, I have an account in some Hyperledger application which will store this snapshot, will store my account number and the balance at one point of time. In future I make some transaction, so after the transaction successfully validated and updated, then the snapshot will get changed. Previously I would have been having 100 rupees on my account, now it will be according to the transaction, it will be adjusted. So if I want to find out what is my balance, I can directly come to the snapshot and get it, okay, instead of going to the complete blockchain. So that advantage it provides. And in case of Hyperledger, the snapshot means the world state or the recent database. But when it comes into IOTA, the things are different, that I will discuss tomorrow. So now you can see the complete network. It will be like this. You can see the ordering service. So this is the place where the consensus will run. Okay, that Kafka consensus or the Byzantine based consensus will run in this place. So these nodes, that the committing peer nodes, we can see these also committing, and these are called as the endorsing peer. So these peers can be overlapping. So for example, these three peers plays as the endorser role as well as the committer role. Okay, so there can be an overlap. So we can see there are three set of nodes that are part of Hyperledger network. One is the endorser, then orderer, then the committer. The committer is the one who puts the data in the actual blockchain, that is updating or adding the data in the chain, that is linking the new block into the chain and updating the snapshot. So we have the client. So what the client has to do, so one Hyperledger fabric, this is the framework. Okay, you can have multiple smart contracts running on it. So that is the chain code you can run, but each chain code should have the ID. Based on the ID, the chain code will be identified. Accordingly, it will be executed for the client. That's why you can see here the client ID, chain ID, timestamp, and signature. So you know very well that why the timestamp and client signature is used. So once the client makes a transaction, okay, what he or she will do is, first they have to send it to the endorsers. So how these endorsers, there will be n number of endorsers, how they will decide on these endorsers. So there is a particular rule given. Based on that rule, the endorsers will be decided for the client. So once it goes to the endorsers, this endorser will simulate the transaction. Okay, that what we have seen in 2 slides before. So here you remember that the simulation will happen. So here the endorser will simulate, and once they simulate and found that yes, it is perfect, then they will put their signature and send back to the client. So you can see all of them are coming back to the client. Once it come back to the client will make a bundle. Okay, the bundle means the transaction will be there, and the signature, that the endorsement, whatever is given by the endorsers, that all will be put together and sent to the ordering service. Okay, it goes to the ordering service. When it goes to the ordering service means it goes to the leader of the ordering service. So what the leader will do, the leader will a very important thing here in the ordering service, the orderer will not validate the transaction or validate the endorsements. His job, this subset of nodes job is only to order, because order in the sense the sequencing. Okay, so they will make in a sequence and that will be accepted by all the orderers. Once the sequence is made, then it will be, we can say the sequence making, that it is like they are creating the block. Once the block is created, that will be sent to all the committers. So here, as I said before, that these endorsing node are the overlapping nodes with committer. So these orderer sends the block to the committers. Now these people are called as committers also. And here also the committer, which is only committer, not the endorser. So all of them, all these nodes, you can see here they do the validation. So the first validation is endorsement validation. Whatever is given by the endorsers, that will be validated. Here you can see the endorsers as well as the committers, both are same. Okay, but this is not always the case. Okay, here only one committer is given, but there may be n number of committers here. So it is not that if they do some mistake, they will again accept that mistake and carry forward. That is not possible. So once this ordering done, it has given to the endorser. Endorsers validate the endorsement as well as the read write set. If the things are proper, they will update the blockchain. All of them will be having the updated blockchain, and that will be intimated to the client. Okay, yes, it is updated on the block. In case there is any failure, that will also be intimated. So why now the endorser should also update on the blockchain is, when the next transaction comes from the client, they should have the latest data in the blockchain. So accordingly they can validate. That's why all of them should have the latest, all of them should have all the blocks, whatever is we can say generated up to the point of time. So here there is no word mining will be used. Here we can say it is created or generated. So accordingly the transaction flow happens, and these orderers, they never maintain, even we can say it is up to them, those nodes, but mostly these will not have the snapshots. Okay, ordering service will never use the snapshot, but the committers and the endorsers will have the copy of the snapshot. That means the latest data. So yes, yes, please.
Hello, sir.
Hello. Yes.
What I want to ask, sir,
Uh,
during endorsing, let's say we have three endorsing pairs. Whether
See,
all of them has to
little louder, please. Your voice is not. So it's not much audible to me.
Sir, ordering services will order the transactions, sir. Sequence
So
of
you will order the
transactions.
transaction and make a block.
Okay.
Hello.
Sir, committer peer is another service which before committing it will check all the transactions.
See, it will not check the internal things of transaction, because it's already simulated by the endorsers. Okay, so it checks whether the endorsers, whatever they have done, they are authorized to do it, and then the endorsers have produced the read write set, that will be validated. Okay, if that is successfully validated, then it will be added into the chain. Okay, so they don't execute the what we can say, they don't get into the inside the transaction. They do whatever they want based on the read write set.
Suppose if the transaction is not as per the smart contract conditions, then how it is possible to commit the transaction?
See, endorsers itself will reject it.
Fine, fine, sir. So endorser before ordering it will check, and even after the transaction it will check.
See, endorsers will check in the beginning, and at the time of committing, they will check whatever read write set given by the endorsers is proper or not. Then only they will commit.
Okay, okay, sir. Fine, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please.
During endorsing, let's say I have three endorsing pair. Whether all of them has to sign or any one of them can sign. I mean, what can be the endorsing
See, there
policy?
will be massive number of endorsers. Let's say 50 endorsers are there.
Yes.
Okay. All of them will not be for your transaction. Okay. That's why I said that there is a rule. Okay. Minimum number should be there.
Yes. Okay, sir. And one more thing, sir, who can be the clients? I mean, any web browser which is accessing the application can be a client, or what?
See,
Who
the
can be the
client
client?
should be definitely an user, okay, who has that ID, but the interface can be anything. Okay, see, if you want, you can put client as the IoT device also.
Okay,
Okay,
okay, sir. Thank
and
you.
whatever interface you want to make, accordingly you can prepare it.
Sir, how endorsing policy will be decided, sir?
So the endorsing policy is the first thing to be considered is how many endorsements required. That is the minimum number of endorsements required. Okay.
Fine.
And after that, out of those endorsements, the second thing is whether the majority is accepting or not the particular transaction. Okay. So only these two things we have to consider. And one more very important thing, here we consider this as the permissioned network. So we don't say that there will be malicious behavior of one endorser. Okay, but that is definitely possible. Even we have one paper on the vulnerabilities of Hyperledger Fabric. But the initial assumption is that all of them will do the task according to their duty, and the possibility of failure is only from the crash fault.
Fine, sir.
So the
Fine,
policy
sir.
is this: what is the minimum number, and who are the endorsers, and the majority among those endorsers.
Fine, sir. Thank you, sir.
So any other query, or shall I proceed? Okay. So this is the Hyperledger chain. You can see it is similar to this one, Ethereum or Bitcoin, block 0, block 1, block 2, block 3. And as we know that one block will be having the hash of the previous block. That's where the chain is made, which says that it is the data is immutable once we put in the blockchain. And here we have the Genesis block, which may not have any of the transactions at the initial stage. And these are the transactions which are ordered in the particular block. So it contains the block number. If we talk about the block header, what the block header will have is the block number and the hash of the block and the previous block hash. That will be there in the block header, and there will be transaction. And next is the metadata. What this metadata is, there are orderers. There are so many orderers, and always the leader will make the block or generate the block. So their credential, that is the certificate details, will be here so that it can be verified by anybody else. Okay, that will be there in the metadata. So in this way the chain grows. So you can see the details here. And when it comes to the transaction also has the header. So what the header will contain is the version of the smart contract and the channel ID, because in a Hyperledger Fabric you can have multiple smart contracts. That means you can run multiple applications. When you are running multiple applications, you will be having given channel ID for each and every application. So those things will be available in the header, and we'll be having the signature of the owner who is making the transaction, and the proposal, that means what input he want to do. Let's say he want to make a transaction of transferring fund or something else, that detail will be there. And the response here, what the response is, the read-write set of the endorsers. Whoever simulates the transaction, they put this as the response. That is the read-write set. And here the endorsement details, because there are so many endorsing peers, and those endorsement details will be present in the transaction. So in this way, the transaction is constructed. So that means the initial transaction sent by the client is different in this level. Okay, because that does not have the endorsement and it does not have the response. When the endorsement comes back, again the client will remodify the transaction and send it. When that is sent, that will have this. So this is the complete Hyperledger network. We can say there are the ordering service and the peers. So these peers are, we can say, the committers as well as the endorsing nodes, and here are the applications, that is the client applications. We can run multiple applications. You can see different colors maintained at the peers level, and also you can see here this maintains the ledger, and here it does not maintain the ledger. We can say, according to this block diagram, this blockchain is maintained by the committer and then the endorsers, not by the ordering service nodes. And you can see the membership service provider who is responsible to allow the user into the network. So how they allow is by giving the certificate and allowing them to create the key, and that key will be verified when the participation takes place. So in this way, the Hyperledger network will be made. So the security is provided through the membership service provider, and the privacy is ensured that we have discussed in more detail before. And it has the features, that is the world state it have, and it has the channel also. That means you can have here the world state is the snapshot. So what the channel here is, you can have multiple smart contracts running on the same framework. So for every smart contract application, you should have the different ID. So based on that ID, it will be uniquely identified and used. Okay, these are the features. So in this way, the Hyperledger Fabric works. This is one of the simple chain code which I took from the Hyperledger site, and it is written in Go language. So you can see that this is part of the Go language. No need to go in detail, but we need the package which is shim. This is the intermediate layer between the validator and then the actual Hyperledger, that is the blockchain. Okay, so that is required, and you can see here we are creating a structure. We can say that this structure is the name of the smart contract or the name of the chain code. So in this way we can create, and here there are two transactions possible in this example. One is initialization and another one is invoke. The initialization that happens at the beginning. So here you can see we are calling that shim package because it contains so many predefined functions. That is, this particular interface contains so many packages. There are the functions available like get, string, arguments and all. So this complete chain code is that we will create a ledger, or we can create a storage where we will put something and then we can read something from that. Okay, so that is what it is created. Maybe it will not be that worth to discuss here, but I put here so that you can visualize some of the, we can say, the simple method of writing the chain code. So this one is when we are going to invoke the function, because this happens in iteration, not in iteration. It happens multiple times or infinite number of times where the transaction is going to be executed. So here it will be decided whether you want to perform the get, that means you want to read, or you want to set. Okay, write on it. So if it is set function, you will see whether the arguments are there or not. That arguments means because you will be needing the value and the key. The key is the address. The value is the account balance, let's assume. Okay, you want the account address and then the balance. If both are there, and if the state, whatever the transaction says as the put state, then you will update the ledger. In case it is the get state, you will read and show that. Okay, so this is a very simple one. Don't take it as something great in it. This is just copied from a site and I have put here. So similarly we can create, but you see this one is not for creating the network. It's only for the simple chain code. So when you have to create the network, you have to install so many things. Okay, even our students does the simulation. What they do is they don't create the MSP. So whatever by default the MSP peers comes, that they take and they work on the chain code because their requirement is only for the research point of view, not on the point of, we can say, the complete application development. But there are places where they completely develop the application, where they set the network and they decide the peer nodes, the endorsing nodes. Also they decide who will be the MSP. So this is required when you go for real-time application development for an industry or for any organization. So which includes the government also. So in this way, you can create the chain code. So that's it about the Hyperledger which I want to speak. So if you have any question, you can ask. And this can be used for various applications, Hyperledger Fabric. So you can think of this e-healthcare, as I already said. Also, you can think of smart metering infrastructure, which we use. For both we have used, but I never used Hyperledger Fabric. For the both cases, I used Ethereum. You mostly know Ethereum as the permissionless blockchain, but it is permissioned blockchain also. It provides the proof of authority concept. The latest version has that. Okay, they use the authentication round techniques using the click concepts. So we use that and perform the experiment. That is the experiment in the case of just the simulation. So if you have the application, then you can decide whether you want to go for Ethereum or a Hyperledger. But my suggestion is you please go for Hyperledger. It is simple when compared to Ethereum. And so when you go for Ethereum, you have there, even though it is permissioned, mining is there in case of Ethereum. But the toughness of mining is very, very less. But here there is no mining problem. Okay, so you can install Hyperledger Fabric on your machine and you can do that. So you can simulate according to your application. So e-healthcare, smart metering infrastructure, and even supply chain management people are using. And even I have seen that in Dubai they are using for house registration. Okay, that is, so here we bother about the land registration, but there it is, because most of the time for them it is only the apartments, right? So that house registration, there are a lot of frauds. So they use this. And in India we use for land record management system. So accordingly you can decide whatever application you want and then you can work on it. Let me know if you have any doubt, please.
Hello, sir.
Sir, MSP membership certificate will be issued to all the stakeholders, sir?
Yes, if you want to be the client or orderer or the endorsing peers or the committers, all should be having that, because the signature and all verified using that only.
Sir, do Hyperledger verifies the membership certificate, sir?
Yes. See, membership service provider is also part of Hyperledger. Like an administrator.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, one of my student is doing the research project on the ticketing, online ticketing, online ticketing.
Online ticketing.
Yeah, any movie ticket or event ticket.
Ticket means a movie ticket or?
Yeah, it is a movie ticket basically.
Okay, okay, madam.
Yeah, at the time of literature review, we are thinking to go for Ethereum, but can we go for the Hyperledger?
Yes, you can
Because
go
I
for
think
it, madam.
more beneficial
in case of Ethereum, what happens? See, the main advantage of Hyperledger is the number of transactions can be performed in a second is 10,000. Okay. In Ethereum, even you go for this proof of authority base, there we have to fix some time. Okay, for every period of time, the mining will happen, and there is a possibility of fork, even though it is permission. Okay, but in case of Hyperledger, you don't have fork. Okay, and my
So it is more
request to
beneficial.
you is please find out who are the participants in your application.
Okay.
Okay, that is very important. And who will do what activity?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Sir, is there any chance for smart contracts to be modified or altered, sir?
In Ethereum, once you put the smart contract, you cannot modify. Okay, if you want to modify, you have to create the new smart contract and put. That's why there they say you have to test in the test network, then you have to put. Because once you put the wrong one, you cannot modify because it's work based on the hash. The particular smart contract will be identified based on the hash. But in case of Hyperledger, yes, you can make the change in the smart contract. But I have not really worked on it. Yes, we can make the change. That is one of the advantages Hyperledger has.
So compromised insider may change the smart contract terms and conditions.
No. That needs the signature, right? Whoever is the owner, only he can do that.
Thank you very much.
Hello.
Yes, madam.
Sir, what are the databases can be used in Hyperledger, sir?
So it uses LevelDB, which is the product of Google. And in some place I have seen that it uses CouchDB also.
What, sir?
CouchDB, COUCH database.
Database, okay.
But I know Ethereum uses LevelDB because I work on that. Here it uses any one of that, but I don't know by default which one, but it's depend on what you download and install.
Okay, for educational system and all, it will be better, sir.
Yes, madam. When you are going for permissioned network, then Hyperledger is the best choice, I can say.
Okay, just simply we can download that Hyperledger, sir. From which sources we have to download, sir? Hyperledger.
There, this Hyperledger, you can see in one of my references, I have given there hyperledger.com or something. Okay, you can get it from there itself, or just you do the Google search, you can find out. But there may be possibility on the first attempt itself, you will not succeed in the installation. Okay, make sure that sometimes you have to format the system also.
Okay, sir.
Okay, to set up the because sometimes what happens when we download, we may not download it completely.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
I'm not threatening you. Okay, because there may be some failure happens. So in mine, I have installed Ethereum. After that, I was working with Django framework. I installed some latest version of Python. After that, I am not able to install any other packages. And all my Ethereum codes are running on it. So I stopped even updating that. Even Ethereum has the latest version, I could not update it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Sir, in Hyperledger, consensus algorithm is required, no, sir?
Yes. That's what the ordering service does.
Sir, how we can define the complexity of that consensus algorithm, sir, in Hyperledger?
So here, when we use the complexity of the Kafka or the Raft, we can say that it can be measured the number of communications. So from leader, the request goes to the peers, that is the followers, and the followers gives the response. So in this way, the complexity will be measured.
Thank
Hello,
you, sir.
Yes. Hello, sir.
Yes, please.
Yes. Sir, suppose while designing, I have 3 organizations, each with 2 peers, right? Three.
Repeat it, please.
suppose while designing this hyperledger network, I have 3 organizations, each with 2 peers.
Okay.
Okay. Then there is something called solo ordering, and you said about the Kafka ordering.
Yes, yes.
Which ordering will be better for this?
As I said before, I have not worked on any 3 of the things. Byzantine only we have worked, even we have developed our own also. But the preference according to my experience with IIT Kanpur is they prefer Kafka.
Okay.
Okay, but my request is please go through the internal details of both, how it is
Both,
working and what is the complexity.
Yes,
Because
sir.
I know Kafka a little bit, but Solo I was not aware much.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
But my suggestion is please go for Byzantine based, because you are going to consider 2 organizations. Okay, there will be definitely malicious behavior.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Participants, any other questions? If no, shall we conclude the session? Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Venkatesan
Ma'am,
sir,
did
for
you
giving
find
such a...
anything? 1 second, ma'am. Did you find
Yes,
anything in
ma'am.
the chat window? If there
No,
are,
no, ma'am.
yeah, okay. Thank you,
Yeah.
sir. And tomorrow also we have the session with the same speaker, IoT and Corda. So please reserve your doubts and please be prepared for the next session tomorrow morning. And thank you, sir. We'll meet you again. And yes, ma'am. Kirtana, ma'am, please take.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, sir, for giving such a wonderful session. Thank you once again. Thank you,
Madam,
participants.
kindly share the slide.
Yes, sir. We will share it.